swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, have a seat, sir, and then give us your first and last name and spell both, please.
Brian, B-R-I-A-N, Fredericks, F-R-E-D-E-R-I-C-K-S.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Detective Fredericks, where are you employed?
For the Waukesha County Sheriff.
And how long have you been employed there?
This is my 16th year.
And is that the totality of your law enforcement experience?
No, in total, I have just over 29 years.
Okay. And were you working for the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department in September of 2022 and 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And during that time, were you assigned to investigate a body that was located in your jurisdiction?
Yes, I was.
What was your role in that investigation?
I was one of two detectives that was assigned to conduct the investigation itself.
Okay. And from September of 2022 through September of 2023, did you and Detective Plennis and other members of the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department continue to investigate the circumstances around that body being located?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And through your investigation, did you develop a suspect of who you believed may have been involved in the death of what was later identified as Stephanie Pavlon?
Yes, we were.
Okay. Now, did there come a time where you determined there would be an arrest made?
Yes.
Okay. And who was it that your department was going to be arresting in relation to this homicide?
The defendant, Matthew Pahl.
Okay. Do you see Mr. Paul in court here today?
I do.
Can you please identify him by where he's seated and items of clothing he's wearing?
He's seated next to defense attorneys in all orange.
Okay. May the record reflect identification of the defendant?
All right, any comment, Mr. Jensen?
No.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. And on September 18th of 2023, was that when you and your partner, Detective Plennis, determined that you would seek out Mr. Paul to make an arrest in this case?
That's correct.
And had you and other members of your department previously had contact with Mr. Paul?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Did you know where Mr. Paul lived?
Yes.
Okay. Where was he living at the time?
An apartment complex on Delafield Street in the city of Waukesha.
Okay. And where did you believe you would find Mr. Paul on September 18th of 2023?
Coming or going from his apartment complex.
Okay. And so what did you and Detective Plennis do?
We sat up in a position of surveillance to monitor the entrance that we believed he would be exiting from.
Okay. And were you in a squad?
We were in an unmarked vehicle.
Prior to September 18th of 2023, had you actually interviewed Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Okay. And during that interview, he had then read his Miranda warnings and agreed to speak with you and another detective?
Correct.
Okay. On this occasion, when you made contact with Mr. Paul on September 18th, was there any sort of plan about if you were going to interview Mr. Paul?
No.
Why was there wasn't a plan, or you were not going to interview him?
We were not going to interview him.
Okay. Why was that?
Because he had already retained counsel.
Okay. And so on September 18th of 2023, about what time were you and Detective Plennis conducting surveillance to try and locate Mr. Paul?
I think we got into the area in approximately 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier.
Okay. And do you know how long you had to wait before you saw Mr. Paul exit the residence?
It was the majority of the day. I feel like it was towards the very end of the day, actually.
Okay. And did you have a signed arrest warrant to take Mr. Paul into custody?
Yes,
Did you also have a search warrant for his residence for that day?
we did.
Okay. And what happened when you and Detective Plennis were sitting in the car and observed Mr. Paul exit the residence?
We approached him, and Detective Plennis was driving. I was on the passenger side. And when we pulled up, I was closest to where Mr. Paul was and identified ourselves. He was aware for sure of who I was and told him that he was under arrest.
By that point, you had met Mr. Paul on a number of occasions?
Yes.
Okay. And were you and Detective Plennis using a recording device to record your interaction with Mr. Paul that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you do that?
In the event that any excited utterances or statements like that were made.
Okay. And did you start that recording before you and Detective Plennis even got out of the vehicle?
I think it was about the same time that I was coming out of the car that the recording was started.
Okay, and do you recall if you were holding that recording device or Detective Plennis or it was somewhere in the vehicle?
I don't recall.
Okay. Have you had a chance to listen to that recording since that date?
Yes.
Okay. I am going, when you listened to that recording, did you believe it was a true and accurate depiction of the recording you made with Mr. Pahl?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to play, I would move to admit exhibit number 1, and I would move admission.
Any comment or statement at this time?
No,
Any objection?
no.
Okay, then number 1 will be admitted,
so
again, for purposes of this hearing.
We will start at the beginning, and I will let the court know if and when that recording is stopped.
Traffic. Hey, Bob, we got him.
Can I at least lock my bike up? Is my chain locked up on my bike?
Lock it up.
I don't know if I locked it up. What are you doing? Circling the parking lot, waiting for me to come out?
Circling the parking lot? That kind of time.
How the hell could you? How the hell could I just come out? I just came out. It just came out.
Yeah. Got lucky.
Got lucky.
Got lucky, you got unlucky.
I'm not worried about anything. I'm absolutely worried about nothing.
Matt, your date of birth was 6/11/68, right?
Yep. You got faith on your side, and you know you didn't do it.
Detective, by this point, is Mr. Pahl in handcuffs?
Yes.
And is he being, I guess, placed in the back of your unmarked vehicle?
Correct.
Okay. What are you doing while he's in the back of your unmarked vehicle? What are you waiting for?
We were waiting for a marked squad to show up that had a cage to transport Mr. Pahl.
Okay. And throughout your interaction with Mr. Pahl, you kept that recording going?
That is correct.
Why did you do that?
Again, just to memorialize the event, and if there's any statements made that would be helpful.
Okay, so we'll start again at 120. Sorry, 128.
You guys are gonna have to.
Hey, it's fine.
What are you doing?
Okay.
You're gonna have to say.
Is that what you think?
That's what I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, turn. In case I have a second lock these so they don't tighten up on you, can you swing your legs? There you go. And that one. You're good.
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't be nothing new. It wouldn't be nothing new. I got charged. The DA's office charged me for beating up that guy, breaking the window. That never happened.
Okay.
Just like in the interview when I was in with you,
Yeah.
they fabricated a witness at the school with my daughter's spanking, which was absolute bullshit. So,
Yeah.
you know, this is just silly. I just don't know how you go by just because of what the Pavlons say or because of what the Pavlons family says. You know, it's
Got so very little to do with that, man.
well, it's got everything to do with that because I know for a fact what I did and what I didn't do.
Gotcha.
Okay, you're not going to do inception on me by planting thoughts in my head with things I didn't do.
You think we're
I'm
planting
not.
thoughts on your head?
I'm not trying to be addicted. I'm just
just
telling
talking,
you.
dude. It's all
I'm
good.
just telling you. I read the paper.
Yeah.
I understand that DOJ's in Illinois, DOJ's in Michigan, rounding up a lot of detectives for putting people away on fabricating shit. Okay, that's all over the place.
I'm not worried.
That's all over the place.
I'm not worried about that.
Well, I don't know what I'm being arrested for.
Well,
what
we'll explain all that.
What could I possibly be arrested for? I didn't do anything.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm not worried about DOJ doing any kind of roundups. Got nothing to do with me.
Oh, I think eventually DOJ is going to be in this state. I mean, I think eventually.
It's possible.
I think eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I'm not worried about it personally. Like,
I mean, I'm just wondering what's going on.
Line 204 being routed
This shit is
WSD
real.
for special
I mean, it
assignment.
was just on the news this weekend with the Innocence Project about how many people are getting charged and convicted for shit they don't do.
gotcha.
You think the way I'm here? Do I act like I'm guilty?
People act different ways, different
Oh,
times.
yeah, I
you
know
what I
that.
mean? Like,
Trust me, I know that.
yeah,
And detectives do different things different ways too.
that's
you know?
fair. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not worried about DOJ
But
roundups.
come on,
like,
man. I
that
mean,
shit don't
you know,
bother me.
honestly, no, I'm not. I'm just telling you that's what's going on.
No,
I mean,
I don't doubt it.
it's a reality.
I've seen it. I hear what you're saying.
I mean, honestly, heart to heart, whatever that saying is, you know, I'm a little bit shocked. I thought you guys were going to do a little bit better than this.
Oh, really?
Then
We
just-
disappoint you?
No, they just put the blame game on somebody.
No.
I thought you would actually be able to, you know, like you guys are supposed to do it. You're supposed to follow the evidence.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else upstairs that needs to be, anyone in the house? that
No,
needs to-
no, nobody's up
So
there.
the door's open, you lock.
No, I did. I believe I did lock it. I just got confused with my lock over
okay.
over there, my bike.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure I locked my door before.
we'll make
I
sure
left.
it's locked. We'll get that taken care of. We'll make sure everything's secured before we leave, okay?
Well, you don't got a warrant to go in there.
I will, no, he said there's nobody else up there. All right?
Do you have my keys? I mean, I know you took my yellow pieces of paper out of my wallet last time.
Yellow piece.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a lot of
It's
stuff.
on camera. I mean, you took
Yeah.
my yellow pieces of paper in that little room that were in my wallet,
Yeah.
and that wasn't in the search warrant.
Did you come grab that, or?
No, I'm
I'm
good.
drawing a blank on what that would be.
That was personal information that belonged to me.
There was a number of people in and out of there that day, right? Like there was probably
Come on,
10 detectives.
you
in there.
hand me my wallet and the papers were gone. You took them out.
Again, the yellow paper. I don't know what was on it off the top of my head, but
Well, it would have to be on the search warrant if you take it.
throw these in a bag.
Yeah, I'm putting your stuff in a bag, all right, bud? Or an envelope?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I figured it would be some show around the year. I figured you'd have to try to come up with something to justify what you did
What we did? What did we
by coming here and arrested somebody for what? For
Well,
what?
we went through all that.
I'm shocked, but yet I'm not with Waukesha County
Yeah.
fabricating stuff.
I'm surprised you stayed living in the county with all these beefs you've had here.
Well, I got kind of stuck here.
Yeah.
I got kind of stuck here, you know, basically helping her, you know, helping her stay alive for so many freaking years,
Yeah.
you know. And then now I'm getting accused. I assume this is what it is. Now I'm getting accused for something I absolutely did not do.
Okay.
All I can say is, you know, I'd rather stand with God and be judged by the people than stand with the people and be judged by God, because, you know, on review day up there, you guys better have the answers, man.
Seems fair.
You better have the answers.
I feel pretty good, man. I sleep at night.
I hope so. I
You know
do
what I
too.
mean? So.
I do too. I do too. I do too.
That's good.
I can't get a drink out of my bottle. I knew as soon as I looked over here. I knew it was the police. I knew you guys were the police. Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna go sit up. No.
The way you pulled in here, good thing I wasn't on my bike. It might have hit me.
Hello, Puerto Rico.
Clear citation. Truck CBSD for assignment. I think it's the same call 23 though.
I got a fucked up shoulder.
It's on, it's recording.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Just leave that going.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't care if you however you want to.
Was that the deputy that came in a marked squad to take custody of Mr. Pahl?
That is correct.
And did you have an opportunity to review the entire remaining about 9 minutes of this audio?
I believe I did, yes.
Okay. And does anyone ask Mr. Pahl any other, is there any other conversation with the deputy and Mr. Pahl in that 9 minutes?
No.
Okay. And you, in fact, then provide the recording device, you or Detective Plennis, to that deputy to keep in the squad with her while she continues to transport Mr. Pahl?
That's correct.
Okay. And in those 11 minutes and 17 seconds that you interacted with Mr. Pahl, did you ask him any questions related to the investigation?
I did not.
Did you have just a little bit of back and forth conversation with Mr. Pahl?
I would describe it as small talk, yes.
Okay. And at one point, he said something about maybe your department disappointing him, and you said, "Oh, really? Did we disappoint you?" Right?
I did.
Did Mr. Pahl answer in any way related to this investigation?
Not really, no.
Okay. What day was Miss Pavlon's body found out in the woods near Delafield?
September 9th of 2022.
And on September 18th of 2023 is when you and Detective Plennis made this recording?
Correct.
Okay, and so it had been just over a year from the time the body was located?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's what Mr. Pahl was referencing in, I knew there'd be a showing at about a year?
Yes.
Okay. Throughout those 11 minutes, did you make any attempt to ask Mr. Pahl any questions?
No.
Why didn't you read him his Miranda warnings?
Because we were not in a position that we were going to begin any type of interrogation, and specifically in this, we were not planning on an interrogation.
But you would agree Mr. Pahl was in custody at this time?
I would, yes.
I don't have anything else for this witness.
Mr. Jensen?
No, I have no cross because we heard it all on the video, on the audio recording.
Okay.
State has no other witnesses.
All right,
State would move Exhibit 1 if it wasn't already into
All right,
evidence.
no other witnesses, any testimony from anyone?
No.
Okay. I don't have any questions now. Some of the stuff during the recording was not really clear, but I'll listen. If I think I have other questions, we'll have them come back up.
Okay.
You can have a seat, sir. Okay. All right. All right, what do you want to tell me, ma'am?
Judge, I'm asking that you deny the defendant's motion. I concede that the defendant was in custody, but I think it's very clear from listening to the audio recording that there was no questions asked of Mr. Pahl. In fact, Mr. Pahl is kind of challenging the law enforcement officers about why they're there, what they're there doing, that there's some type of conspiracy. And the only thing even that comes close to a question is, did we disappoint you, in which Mr. Pahl does not respond in any way related to this investigation. He kind of mumbles and moves on. The definition of interrogation is something that is, interrogation or the functional equivalent is something that's reasonably likely to elicit an incriminating response. I don't think any of Detective Frederick's statements to Mr. Pahl were likely to elicit an incriminating response. And to be frank, the defendant's statements that the defense really seeks to be suppressed were, I thought you had to follow the evidence, and I figured there'd be some show around the year. Neither of those statements were made in response to a question, and all of his statements were spontaneous. So I don't believe that there's been a Miranda violation here, and I'm asking that you deny the motion.
Mr. Jensen?
Well, Your Honor, I think you should listen to it again, because when I listened to it, it definitely seemed that those comments by Mr. Pahl were in response to questions by the detective. And just to make...
Let's play those points in the tape. Tell us what point, what time.
Oh, I don't have that exactly right in front of me. I can probably find it.
No.
So let's go back then. You have, I'm going to ask you to play again. The point with at 7 minutes and 40 seconds into the tape, or into the recording. Before you do that, give me 1 second. I want to look at a document here for unrelated to this case.
What?
Okay.
Judge, if the court, I found the exact part where Detective Frederick says, did we disappoint you? If that's what the court's interested in, I
So I
can...
want you to play it like right before that then.
Okay. So we
what
should,
Mr. Paul said and then what Detective Frederick said.
okay. So if we could start at 4:34. Sure, that's fine. So we're gonna start at 4:32.
You a little bit better than this.
Oh, really?
Then
We
just-
disappoint you?
No, they just put the blame game on somebody.
Oh.
I thought you would actually be able to, you know, like you guys are supposed to do it. You're supposed to follow the evidence.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else upstairs that needs to be, anyone in the house? that
No,
needs to
no, nobody's up
So
there.
the door's open, you lock.
No, I did. I believe I did lock it. I just got confused with my lock over
Oh,
lock
okay.
over there, my bike.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure I locked my door before I.
we'll make
I
sure
left.
it's locked. We'll get that taken care of. We'll make sure everything's secured before we leave, okay?
Okay. Then, anything else from the state?
I guess I just want to clarify, that's the only question that they're, in response that they're challenging?
Well,
You tell me, sir, if there's any other part you think I should listen
Well,
to again, I'll be happy to do that.
After that, about locking the door, that he said, you know, they're talking about, he said, you can't go in there without a warrant.
right.
You know,
Concerning the Miranda issue, it's just I thought you had to follow the evidence, and I thought there'd be some show, because it's been a year.
So the statement regarding, I thought there'd be some show around a year, does not happen until 7:35 in the
Yeah, if
recording.
you could play that again.
Sure, so let's start it at,
I thought I
can
had
start around
recorded at about 7:40.
yeah, if we could start it around sometime after 7:30.
And tell us when you're gonna start.
Sure. Sure, we'll start it at 7:33.
Yeah, I figured it would be some show around the year. I figured you'd have to try to come up with something to justify what you did.
What we did?
You wanted it played a little bit before
Well,
that?
It started when Paul began his answer. I want to see what the question was.
So,
So you want it started before he started talking at about
Yes.
7:35?
Correct.
All right, that's fine. Play it a little bit before that.
so can we start
How
at,
about like at about,
we could start it at, there's no talking between 6:58 and 7:35.
all right, okay. So let's, just so we know for sure, start it at 7:30.
That's fine, you can, yeah. So we're starting at 7:29.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured it'd be some show around the year. I figured you'd have to try to come up with something to justify what you did.
What we did?
By coming here and arresting somebody for what? For what?
We went through all that.
Stop it at 8:09.
So as I understood it, the testimony, or the statement was, Mr. Paul, I'm going to paraphrase, said something to the effect that I figured you'd have to come up with something for what you did after a year. And then the detective said, what we did? Not so much a
Right, well-
question as a response to, we did, okay. Anything else you want me to get?
That's it.
Okay, all right. Any other comment then from the state?
Just judge that between 7 minutes and 7:35, when Mr. Paul makes that statement, there's no conversation. I think it's clear that making some show around the year is not directly following the conversation earlier about some disappointment. He's not making that statement in response to the question, to any question. It's a spontaneous statement made by himself.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Jensen?
No.
All right, so, and you seek to suppress those statements made in custody to him on that date, which was the 18th of September 2023, correct?
Correct.
All right, so obviously there was custody, right? There's no question about that. The testimony of Officer Frederick was that they were going to go and take him into custody, that Mr. Pahl had already invoked his right to have an attorney, and that it was clear to me that the detective knew that there wasn't going to be questioning because that invocation. If there's custody and there's questioning and interrogation, or that old term, the functional equivalent of it, like a police officer saying, don't answer any questions, just let me tell you what we have, or something along those lines. That wasn't the case here. That wasn't the case here. Mr. Pahl was chatty. The detectives were taking him into custody. They restrained him immediately. There's no question but that there was custody. And now the next question that we have to look at, absent a reading of the Miranda rights and notifying him his right to remain silent, to have an attorney, et cetera, to get an attorney to represent him, and so on, what we commonly call the Miranda rights. They didn't advise him of those. Their intent was, as stated by Detective Frederick, to take him into custody, to get a squad with a cage in it, a marked squad probably, but maybe not, but a squad with a cage in it to come and pick him up. Mr. Pahl, throughout the course of those approximately 11 and a quarter minutes that were recorded, initiated comments. He's the one who initiated. Several times I heard the officer say, okay, as just acknowledging that he said something, okay. And just acknowledging as well some other actions that the officers were going to take, locking the door, letting him lock his bike, or acknowledging the door was locked. Mr. Pahl accusing officers of fabricating stuff. And it was at that point when he started talking about that 8:20, and about at 8:50 the officers responded, okay. And then Mr. Pahl continued talking about something being held for something he did not do. He knew it was police at 10 minutes. At 10:36 he continued talking. At 11:17 was a stop, no other conversation. Officer Frederick said he did not ask questions about the investigation, and I agree he did not. He did make a response about sort of parroting what we did after they were accused of doing something. There wasn't any direct questioning. There wasn't anything that I would understand to be the functional equivalent of questioning, something said to initiate Mr. Pahl's conversation about the crime or the allegations against him. What I heard was officers responding to him, acknowledging his statements, wondering what we did, after being accused of doing things. So I'm going to find that the officers did not question him. They did nothing to initiate the conversation with him in regards to talking about the alleged offense. They did nothing that would be considered the functional equivalent of questioning. So I'll find that those statements made by Mr. Pahl were voluntary statements initiated by himself, not in response to questioning by law enforcement officers, and I'll find them to be admissible at the time of trial in the state's case in chief. So, I think I've covered, that's document 92, the motion to suppress that in custody statement. The remaining motions concern other acts and the admission of evidence in the course of the trial that are going to take some time, I believe. And it's almost 4 o'clock now. I don't think we need testimony from other individuals, do we, from the state's perspective?
No, Judge, those are the two motions that we believe would require testimony.
All right, and do you agree with me, Mr. Jensen? We don't have any other testimony that's needed?
Yes, however, in my response, I pointed out that there are two facets to this issue. One is it truly admissible other acts evidence? And second of all, how the state intends to present the
No, I
evidence.
understand that.
Yeah.
That's a different issue, and
Right.
I don't know, I mean, the witnesses can leave if they wish. I'm sure they're not going to, but they're free to leave if they wish. So, yeah, as I read the documents, there's those two issues. There's the evidence that is the state seeks to introduce, not as other acts, but as part of, I think the term, the panorama of the offense, right? And then there's those things that are clearly other acts related to Ms., I think her name was Bean, and other statements. The question that I have is the same question that I think Mr. Jensen has. Regardless of whether I believe these things are going to be admissible, how does the state intend to admit to what I perceive in some of the cases to be hearsay issues? Now, for example, there are conversations between Mr. Pahl, I think text conversations between him and a woman or women in the Philippines. And whereas some of those texts, if it's demonstrated that they're from him, would be admissible. I'm not making any final decision here, but then responses from people in the Philippines on their face would be inadmissible. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, there's a series of texts between Mr. Pahl and somebody in the Philippines. What part of that, Mr. Gordon, would you be attempting to admit?
So the text message specific to the Philippines is actually part of our motion in limine, that not part of our other acts.
Okay.
But the same would go for the emails between Mr. Pahl and Ms. Pavlon's or text messages. The state's assertion is that the defendant's side of the conversation is not hearsay and is admissible. And so we would be seeking to admit the other side of the conversation for context and to allow a greater understanding of the conversation, not necessarily for the truth of the matter asserted, particularly as it relates to the conversations in the Philippines. We're most interested in Mr. Pahl's comments and the statements that he makes, and kind of what the woman says to him in response is not of consequence, except that it allows the jury to have some context and understanding of what the conversation is or is about and what Mr. Pahl is talking about.
I think that's going to take some time for us to take a good close look at all of those statements. I'm not going to try, I mean, it's going to take a couple hours for us to take care of that. And I don't intend to dive into that today. I think we've had a long day, at least my staff has had. We've had other things as well. And what I'd like to do is, we have our trial date set and we've got limited time.
Would the court consider hearing the jury view motion today?
I'll talk about the jury view, sure. Is there opposition to the jury view?
No.
Okay. Now, let me do this. Jury views can be difficult, right? We have this in April. I am not familiar with I know roughly where the area is behind the orthopedic hospital. What's that ground like? Is it wet? Is it you know, and the concern that I have in jury views, the jury views that I've had been, for example, although not my case, on the parade case, the parties brought in a motor vehicle, and the jurors were able to see that in a controlled environment. I had a civil case where we looked at a tunnel boring machine, and that was brought on the flatbed of a semi-truck to the roundabout where we were able to troop out there. Jury views are part of the jury trial. Jury views mean that anybody in the world could go out there when we're there, right? Especially when we're out in public, right? The media
Funny
included.
story about that. I'll tell you later.
I'm sure. What's the terrain like? Is it wet? Is it soggy? Are we going to have to get, we're going to have 2 alternates? Are we going to have to get our own mud boots and 14 pairs of mud boots for jurors? I don't know. I'm not intimate with the area. And so you want a jury view. The defense is not opposing the jury view. My job is to logistically set up the jury view and bring my staff with me, and depending on what we need to do, I need the state then. We know that there's no opposition to the jury view. Give me the logistics. How are we going to provide for people? What's the terrain going to be like? Do we have to spray for mosquitoes ahead of time? I mean, it's
Sure.
in the woods. It's in April.
Sure. If I could speak to that, it was my motion, Your Honor, and I am familiar with this area. I've been out there a couple of times. It could be wet. It definitely could be, depending on the weather, of course. My solution to the footwear would be to give the jurors enough notice and say, hey, on Wednesday, please bring rain boots. We're going to be going out there, and have them supply their own.
I was jesting about
Okay, well, I think it's a legitimate thing. I do. My proposal would be, yes, it's part of the jury. It still has to be held open to the public, but we would still ask the sheriff's department to provide some security in the area so that the jury isn't interfered with or disrupted in any way. So my request, again, was that on a date to be determined, we would have a bus transport the jury to the location. My request was that prior to the jury's arrival, the sheriff's department would be on scene. They would have the area generally marked off.
Let me do this. And I apologize for interrupting you, but there's not an opposition to the jury view.
There's not an opposition, is my understanding.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's not an opposition. And there's a lot of logistical things that, you know, we have Mr. Pahl in custody. How are we going to handle that? Is there expected that anything would be said at the time of the jury view? Who should say it, right? And if anybody's going to say anything, my very excellent court reporter is going to have to be there with a machine as well. And so, again, I'm not familiar with the terrain. I don't know how far off the road it is. I think that because there isn't an opposition, I'm going to ask you folks to put your heads together to see if we can come up with a plan.
Okay.
Okay? And then, subject to my approval and the approval of the sheriff's department, who's going to have to provide for the logistics, right?
Yes.
Then let me know what you folks come up with, what you want, what you're concerned about, and what is not agreed upon, and I'll do whatever I have to do if there's a disagreement. But again, I haven't been there. I don't know it. I'm not about to go either. And I presume Mr. Jensen or Mr. Mulgren, you have been or might have been there or have some familiarity perhaps. You folks will know better than I do what has to happen there and what you want of the jury. You want just to look at the area? You want them to, and you're talking about the place where the body was found. You want us to go there and within an arm's length from that? Do you want me to parade the jurors one by one? You want them to look at masks. A lot of questions that I think you folks could probably talk about and get your heads together on and present it to me. But that's what I'm going to ask you to do at this point. I'm inclined to grant it since there's no opposition, but at the same time, I want to make sure that it's meaningful and not that we can logistically do what we need to do. Okay?
Okay.
All right? So we have, that's been taken care of, and now we have the motions in limine and the other acts, which seem to be what's left. I think, you agree with that, Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
You agree with that, Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
And how about this Friday? Or the Friday after the on the 21st? What?
This Friday would be.
Hang on a second. Yeah. Until 2:30? Because we have that thing with, what's his name? Sakua. All right, this Friday or the Friday next?
State would prefer this Friday.
Yeah, I can't do Friday the 21st.
Cannot do the 21st.
Cannot do it.
Are you available this Friday?
Well, I will be here at 10 o'clock on another case, so.
Afternoon.
Oh, then I can't do it. No, I have an appointment in the afternoon.
Okay. But you're not available the 21st?
No.
Okay, let me look at my schedule. Let me consult with my clerk. Pardon? Too close. When do we start this? The 8th? No, we need, it's too close. When? What day? And the 28th, I've got pre-trials. In the afternoon. Check, we're off the record just for scheduling purposes. Check your availability in the afternoon of the 27th.
State's free.
I have a 1:30 status call with Judge Edelman, but I'm wide open after that.
We've got Martha Brown. What?
I'll get out for you. Okay.
Say it again. No trial date? So on the, how about the 24th in the afternoon, Monday afternoon, the 24th?
I have a contest hearing in front of Judge Pizzo.
In front of Judge Pizzo?
Yes.
A family matter?
Family matter, yes.
Okay.
I mean, if you could help me with that.
Is that all afternoon?
It's set for all afternoon.
It's a initial, is it a post-judgment?
It's a contested hearing on a post-judgment. My client just yesterday directed me to file a motion to adjourn. I don't know what the response will be, but.
Okay. Is the state available the afternoon of the 24th?
Yes.
Looks like I'll be helping you and your client on the 24th. I'll talk to Judge Pizzo. I'll tentatively set this to be continued the afternoon of the 24th at 1:30. Okay?
Judge, I'll just let you know, I'll probably be in a trial. It's fine. Mr. Jensen can handle it, but I probably won't be here.
Okay, all right. So, but Mr. Jensen was originally going to handle all the motions.
Right.
Okay. You're okay with that, Mr. Jensen, right?
Yes.
Okay, I will when you write your letter to Judge Pizzo, you can tell them that Judge Ramirez respectfully requests the adjournment of that matter, given the nature of this matter, and I'll also personally talk to him as
I
well.
appreciate that, thank you.
All right. All right, we're continued to that date. And if you can come up with some concepts and ideas about the jury view, let me know by that time as well, please, okay?
Okay, I know your staff is tired. Can I just ask one other quick question as we're gearing up for the trial about exhibits? And how we should organize them or number them, because our practice has been to have digital exhibits and not paper. Do you prefer paper?
So here's my concern when we talk about exhibits, okay? I understand your preference, and I'll be honest with you, you're usually pretty good about exhibits. The problem is that my concern is for the jurors, because if we have, for example, some judges say, okay, state you get 1 through 100, and then you only have 33 exhibits, and then all of a sudden the defense has 101 to 200, jurors are going to wonder, well, what happened to 34 to 100? How many exhibits do you think you're going to have? Lots.
Probably 100 or more. Yeah. So Ms. Gussie, who does a lot of trials, has suggested, if the court finds it helpful, to use letters or alphabet for the
No,
defense?
that's worse.
That's worse, okay.
She may have done a lot of trials, but not more than me. Mr. Jensen?
There's a procedure I've used in other trials that I think could work here. If the state provides us with a USB with all of their exhibits on it, we can look at them ahead of time, and I'll not have any objection to 80% of them. And then we don't have to do that whole identification, move to admit, they can just be admitted. You follow
Okay.
me? The
And
ones
so
I have
then-
an objection to, I will let them know.
Let's start by doing that right now, okay? Is that okay by the state?
So we can pre-mark the exhibits?
And put them all on a USB.
And put them on, you're gonna have them on a USB, right? And if he's got no objection, and so for example, if he knows that you're gonna have, I'll just say 1 to 100, and he's not gonna have any problem with that, we'll just start his at 101.
Except then, if I decide not to use 22, is that going to annoy the court?
Whether it annoys me or not, my annoyance is of no consequence to anybody, but whether it makes sense to the jurors is a different question, right? The problem is not having 22 not produced. The problem is not having 33 to 100, and they're wondering what happened to scores of exhibits.
You could
That's
just
the
handle
problem.
that with an instruction, I think.
Pardon?
You could handle that with an
I could do that too, but let's do this. I'll allow you to pre-mark them at this time, but I want you to let them see what's going on, and then I'll determine what I'll do.
Okay, can we use the status on March 27th? We'll get them to him
Is that 24th?
on the 24th, and
Yes.
then we can talk about it on the 27th?
Right, our jury status is on the 27th.
Right, the 27th, right, okay. All right. Anything else from the state for now?
No.
Anything else, sir, Mr. Jensen?
No, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, everybody. We're okay?